थोड़ा सा करेंगे। रीडिंग करिए कोई।
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 10, Text 2. Prahlad Maharaj said, My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because I was born in an atheistic family, I am naturally attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, kindly do not tempt me with these illusions. I am very much afraid of material conditions, and I desire to be liberated from materialistic life. It is for this reason that I have taken shelter of your lotus feet. Purpose. Materialistic life means attachment to the body and everything in relationship to the body. This attachment is based on lusty desires for sense gratification, specifically sexual enjoyment. Kamastasya hita jnana. When one is too attached to material enjoyment, he is bereft of all knowledge, hita jnana. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, those who are attached to material enjoyment are mostly inclined to worship the demigods to procure various material opulences. They are especially attached to worship of the goddess Durga and Lord Shiva because this transcendental couple can offer their devotees all material opulence. Prahlad Maharaj, however, was detached from all material enjoyment. He therefore took shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev and not the feet of any demigod. It is to be understood that if one really wants release from this material world, from the threefold miseries and from Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, birth, death, old age and disease, one must take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for without the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot get release from materialistic life. Atheistic men are very much attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, if they get some opportunity to achieve more and more material enjoyment, they take it. Prahlad Maharaj, however, was very careful in this regard. Although born of a materialistic father, because he was a devotee, he had no material desires. Anya Vilashita Shunyan. Text 3. O my worshipable Lord, because the seed of lusty desires, which is the root cause of material existence, is within the core of everyone's heart. You have sent me to this material world to exhibit the symptoms of a pure devotee. Purport. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has given considerable discussion about Nitya Siddha and Sadhana Siddha devotees. Nitya Siddha devotees come from Vaikuntha to this material world to teach by their personal example how to become a devotee. The living entities in this material world can take lessons from such Nitya Siddha devotees and thus become inclined to return home back to Godhead. A Nitya Siddha devotee comes from Vaikuntha upon the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and shows by his example how to become a pure devotee, Anyavilashata Shunyam. In spite of coming to this material world, the Nitya Siddha devotee is never attracted by the allurements of material enjoyment. A perfect example is Prahlad Maharaj, who was a Nitya Siddha, a Mahabhagavad devotee. Although Prahlad was born in the family of Hiranyakashipu, an atheist, he was never attached to any kind of materialistic enjoyment. Desiring to exhibit the symptoms of a pure devotee, the Lord tried to induce Prahlad Maharaj to take material benedictions, but Prahlad Maharaj did not accept them. On the contrary, by his personal example, he showed the symptoms of a pure devotee. In other words, the Lord himself has no desire to send his pure devotee to this material world, nor does a devotee have any material purpose in coming. When the Lord himself appears as an incarnation within this material world, he is not allured by the material atmosphere, and he has nothing to do with material activity. Yet by his example, he teaches the common man how to become a devotee. Similarly, a devotee who comes here in accordance with the order of the Supreme Lord shows by his personal behavior how to become a pure devotee. A pure devotee, therefore, is a practical example for all living entities, including Lord Brahma. Text 4. Otherwise, O my Lord, O Supreme Instructor of the entire world, you are so kind to your devotee that you could not induce him to do something unbeneficial for him. On the other hand, one who desires some material benefit in exchange for devotional service cannot be your pure devotee. Indeed, he is no better than a merchant who wants profit in exchange for service. Purport. It is sometimes found that one comes to a devotee or a temple of the Lord just to get some material benefit. Such a person is described here as a mercantile man. Bhagavad Gita speaks of Arto Jigyasu Artharthi. The word Artha refers to one who is physically distressed, and Artharthi refers to one in need of money. Such persons are forced to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead for mitigation of their distress or to get some money by the benediction of the Lord. They have been described as Sukriti, pious, because in their distress or need for money, they have approached the Supreme Lord. Unless one is pious, one cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although a pious man may receive some material benefit, one who is concerned with material benefits cannot be a pure devotee. When a pure devotee receives material opulences, this is not because of his pious activity, but for the service of the Lord. When one engages in devotional service, one is automatically pious. Therefore, a pure devotee is Anyavilashata Shunyam. He has no desire for material profit, nor does the Lord induce him to try to profit materially. When a devotee needs something, the Supreme Personality of Godhead supplies it. Yogakshema Mahamyam. Sometimes materialists go to a temple to offer flowers and fruit to the Lord, because they have learned from Bhagavad Gita that if a devotee offers some flowers and fruits, the Lord accepts them. In Bhagavad Gita 9.26, the Lord says, Patram Pushpam Valam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Bhayachati Sadham Bhaktya Paritam Ashnami Pratatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit or water, I will accept it. Thus, a man with a mercantile mentality thinks that if he can get some material benefit, like a large amount of money, simply by offering a little fruit and flower, this is good business. Such persons are not accepted as pure devotees because their desires are not purified. They are still mercantile men, even though they go to the temples to make a show of being devotees. Sarvapadi Vanarmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam. Only when one is fully freed from these material desires can one be purified, and only in that purified state can one serve the Lord. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. This is the pure devotional platform. Text 5. A servant who desires material profits from his master is certainly not a qualified servant or pure devotee. Similarly, a master who bestows benedictions upon his servant because of a desire to maintain a prestigious position as master is also not a pure master. A servant who desires material profits from his master is certainly not a qualified servant or pure devotee. Similarly, a master who bestows benedictions upon his servant because of a desire to maintain a prestigious position as master is also not a pure devotee, is also not a pure master. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamastasya Hita Jnana Prapadyante Anya Devata. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods. A demigod cannot become master, for the real master is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods, to keep their prestigious positions, bestow upon their worshippers whatever benedictions the worshippers want. For example, once it was found that an asura took a benediction from Lord Shiva by which the asura would be able to kill someone simply by placing his hands on that person's head. Such benedictions are possible to receive from the demigods. If one worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, the Lord will never offer him such condemned benedictions. On the contrary, it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.88.8, Yasyaham anugrahanami harishyat dhanam shanaya. If one is too materialistic but at the same time wants to be a servant of the Supreme Lord, the Lord, because of his supreme compassion for the devotee, takes away all his material opulences and obliges him to be a pure devotee of the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj distinguishes between the pure devotee and the pure master. The Lord is the pure master, the supreme master, whereas an unalloyed devotee with no material motives is the pure servant. One who has materialistic motivations cannot become a servant, and one who unnecessarily bestows benedictions upon his servant to keep his own prestigious position is not a real master. Text 6. The Lord is the pure master, the supreme master, whereas an unalloyed devotee with no material motives is the pure servant. One who has materialistic motivations cannot become a servant, and one who unnecessarily bestows benedictions upon his servant to keep his own prestigious position is not a real master. Text 6. O my Lord, I am your unmotivated servant, and you are my eternal master. There is no need of our being anything other than master and servant. You are naturally my master, and I am naturally your servant. We have no other relationship. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jiva Sarupa Hai Krishnera Nityadas. Every living being is eternally a servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yakatapsam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. I am the proprietor of all planets. I am the proprietor of all planets, and I am the supreme enjoyer. This is the natural position of the Lord. And the natural position of the living being is to surrender unto him. Sarva dharman pratyajya mam ekam sharanam raja. If this relationship continues, then real happiness exists eternally between the master and servant. Unfortunately, when this eternal relationship is disturbed, the living entity wants to become separately happy and thinks that the master is his order supplier. In this way, there cannot be happiness, nor should the master cater to the desires of the servant. If he does, he is not the real master. The real master commands, you must do this, and the real servant immediately obeys the Lord. Unless this relationship between the Supreme Lord and the subordinate living entity is established, there can be no real happiness. The living entity is Ashraya, always subordinate, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishaya, the supreme objective, the goal of life. Unfortunate persons trapped in this material world do not know this. Nate vidu swadha katim hi Vishnu. Illusioned by the material energy, everyone in this material world is unaware that the only aim of life is to approach Lord Vishnu. Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmat varadaram devi tadyanam samarchanam. In the Padma Puran, Lord Srila explains to his wife, Parvati, the goddess Durga, that the highest goal of life is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, who can be satisfied only when his servant is satisfied. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Das Dasanu Dasaha. One must become a servant of the servant. Prahlad Maharaj also prayed to Lord Nrsimhadev that he might be engaged as a servant of the Lord's servant. This is the prescribed method of devotional service. As soon as a devotee wants the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be his order supplier, the Lord immediately refuses to become the master of such a motivated devotee. In Bhagavad Gita 4.11, the Lord says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sthatham bhajamyaham. As one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly. Materialistic persons are generally inclined to material profits. As long as one continues in such an adulterated position, he does not receive the benefit of returning home back to Godhead. Text 7. O my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your Lordship that within the core of my heart there be no material desires. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us how to pray for benedictions from the Lord. He said, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadishyatamaye, mam janmani janmanishwari, bhavtad bhakti rahetu kitvayi. O my Lord, I do not want from you any amount of wealth, nor many followers, nor a beautiful wife, for these are all materialistic desires. But if I have to ask you any benediction, I pray that in whatever forms of life I may take my birth, under any circumstances, I will not be bereft of your transcendental devotional service. Devotees are always on the positive platform, in contrast to the Mayavadis, who want to make everything impersonal or void. One cannot remain void, Shunyavadi. Rather, one must possess something. Therefore, the devotee on the positive side wants to possess something, and this possession is very nicely described by Prahlad Maharaj, who says, if I must take some benediction from you, I pray that within the core of my heart there may be no material desires. The desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not at all material. Text 8. O my Lord, because of lusty desires from the very beginning of one's birth, the functions of one's senses, mind, life, body, religion, patience, intelligence, shyness, opulence, strength, memory, and truthfulness are vanquished. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Kamam Hridrogam. Materialistic life means that one is afflicted by a formidable disease called lusty desire. Liberation means freedom from lusty desires, because it's only due to such desires that one must accept repeated birth and death. As long as one's lusty desires are unfulfilled, one must take birth after birth to fulfill them. Because of material desires, therefore, one performs various types of activities and receives various types of bodies with which to try to fulfill desires that are never satisfied. The only remedy is to take to devotional service, which begins when one is free from all material desires. Anya Vilashita Shunyam. Anya Vilashita Shunyam means material desires, and Shunyam means free from. The spiritual soul has spiritual activities and spiritual desires. As described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatad Bhakti Rahetu Kitvayi. Unalloyed devotion to the service of the Lord is the only spiritual desire. To fulfill this spiritual desire, however, one must be free from all material desires. Desirelessness means freedom from material desires. This is described by Srila Rupa Goswami as Anya Vilashita Shunyam. As long as one has material desires, one loses his spiritual identity. Then all the paraphernalia of one's life, including one's senses, body, religion, patience and intelligence, are deviated from one's original Krishna consciousness. As soon as one has material desires and cannot properly use his senses, intelligence, mind and so on for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayavadi philosophers want to become impersonal, senseless and mindless, but that is not possible. The living entity must be living, always existing with desires, ambitions and so on. These should be purified, however, so that one can desire spiritually and be spiritually ambitious without material contamination. In every living entity, these propensities exist because it is a living entity. When materially contaminated, however, one is put into the hands of material misery, janma mrityu jara vyadhi. If one wants to stop repeated birth and death, one must take to the devotional service of the Lord. Sarvapādhīva nirmuktam tatparattvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all the senses, when the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material recognitions, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. Text 9. O my Lord, when a human being is able to give up all the material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. Purport. Atheistic men sometimes criticize a devotee by saying, if you do not want to take any benediction from the Lord, and if the servant of the Lord is as opulent as the Lord himself, why do you ask for the benediction of being engaged as the Lord's servant? Srila Swami comments, Bhagavattvaya Bhagavat Saman Aishwaryaya. Bhagavatva, becoming as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not mean becoming one with Him or equal to Him. Although in the spiritual world, the servant is equally as opulent as the Master. The servant of the Lord is engaged in the service of the Lord as a servant, friend, father, mother or conjugal lover, all of whom are equally as opulent as the Lord. This is Achinta Bheda Bheda. The master and servant are different, yet equal in opulence. This is the meaning of simultaneous difference from the Supreme Lord and oneness with Him. Text 10. O my Lord, full of six opulences, O Supreme Person, O Supreme Soul, killer of all miseries, O Supreme Person in the form of a wonderful lion and man, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. In the previous verse, Prahlad Maharaj has explained that a devotee can achieve the platform of Bhagavatva, being as good as a Supreme Person, but this does not mean that the devotee loses his position as a servant. A pure servant of the Lord, although as opulent as the Lord, is still meant to offer respectful obeisances to the Lord in service. Prahlad Maharaj was engaged in pacifying the Lord, and therefore he did not consider himself equal to the Lord. He defined his position as a servant and offered respectful obeisances unto the Lord. Text 11. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Prahlad, a devotee like you never desires any kind of material opulences, either in this life or in the next. Nonetheless, I order you to enjoy the opulences of the demons in this material world, acting as their king until the end of the duration of time occupied by Guru. Purport. One Manu lives for a duration of time calculated to be an aggregate of 71 yuga cycles, each of which equals 43 lakh years. Although atheistic men like to enjoy material opulences and they endeavor with great energy to build big residences, roads, cities and factories, unfortunately they cannot live more than 80, 90 or at most 100 years. Although the materialist exerts so much energy to create a kingdom of hallucinations, he is unable to enjoy it for more than a few years. However, because Prahlad Maharaj was a devotee, the Lord allowed him to enjoy material opulence as the king of the materialists. Prahlad Maharaj had taken birth in the family of Hiranyakashipu, who was the topmost materialist, and since Prahlad was the bona fide heir of his father, the Supreme Lord allowed him to enjoy the kingdom created by his father for so many years that no materialist could calculate them. A devotee does not have to desire material opulence, but if he is a pure devotee, there is ample opportunity for him to enjoy material happiness also, without personal endeavor. Therefore, everyone is advised to take to devotional service under all circumstances. If one desires material opulence, he can also become a pure devotee and his desires will be fulfilled. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10 Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati indrena bhakti yogena jeta purusham param. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Text 12. It does not matter that you are in the material world. You should always continuously hear the instructions and messages given by me and always be absorbed in thought of me. For I am the super soul existing in the core of everyone's heart. Therefore, give up fruitive activities and worship me. Purport. When a devotee becomes materially very opulent, one should not think that he is enjoying the results of his fruitive activities. A devotee in this material world uses all material opulences for the service of the Lord because he is planning how to serve the Lord with these opulences as advised by the Lord himself. Whatever material opulence is within his possession, he engages to expand the glories and service of the Lord. A devotee never performs any fruitive or ritualistic ceremony to enjoy the results of such karma. Rather, a devotee knows that karma kanda is meant for the less intelligent man. Narottam Das Thakur says in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Keval Vishaya Bhanda. Both Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, fruitive activities and speculation about the Supreme Lord, are like pots of poison. One who is attracted to Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda spoils his existence as a human being. Therefore, a devotee is never interested in Karma Kanda or Jnana Kanda, but is simply interested in favorable service to the Lord, Anukulyen Krishna Nushiranam, or cultivation of spiritual activities in devotional service. Text 13. My dear Prahlad, while you are in this material world, you will exhaust all the reactions of pious activity by feeling happiness, and by acting piously, you will neutralize impious activity. Because of the powerful time factor, you will give up your body, but the glories of your activities will be sung in the upper planetary systems, and being fully freed from all bondage, you will return home back to Godhead. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Evam Prahladasyamshena sadhana siddhatvam nitya siddhatvam chanaradadi vajgyayam. There are two classes of devotees, the sadhana siddha and the nitya siddha. Prahlad Maharaj is a mixed siddha. That is, he is perfect partly because of his executing devotional service and partly because of eternal perfection. Thus, he is compared to such devotees as Narada. Formerly, Narada Muni was the son of a maid servant, and therefore in his next birth he attained perfection, sadhana siddha, because of having executed devotional service. Yet he is also a nitya siddha because he never forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word kushanena is very important. One should live in the material world very expertly. The material world is known as the world of duality because one sometimes has to act impiously and sometimes has to act piously. Although one does not want to act impiously, the world is so fashioned that there is always danger. Padam padam yadavipadam. Thus, even when performing devotional service, a devotee has to create many enemies. Prahlad Maharaj himself had experience of this, for even his father became his enemy. A devotee should expertly manage to think always of the Supreme Lord so that the reactions of suffering cannot touch him. This is the expert management of Papa Punya, pious and impious activities. An exalted devotee like Prahlad Maharaj is Jivan Mukta. He is liberated even in this very life in the material body. Text 14. One who always remembers your activities and my activities also, and who chants the prayers you have offered, becomes free in due course of time from the reactions of material activities. Purport. Here it is stated that anyone who chants and hears about the activities of Prahlad Maharaj and in relationship with Prahlad's activities, the activities of Nrsimhadev, gradually becomes freed from all the bondage of fruitive activities, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.15 and 2.56. Yamhina vithante te purusham purushashava samadukha sukhadhiram suamritatvaya kalpate. O best among men, Arjun, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Dukeshu anudvigna mana sukeshu vigata spriya vitaraga bhaya krodha sthiratvira mune ruchyate. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger is called a sage of steady mind. A devotee should not be aggrieved in an awkward position, nor should he feel extraordinarily happy in material opulence. This is the way of expert management of material life. Because a devotee knows how to manage expertly, he is called Jivan Mukta. As Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ihayasya Haryadasya Dharmana Manusagira Nikalashya Prasthasya Jivan Mukta Savchyate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence and words, is a liberated person even within this material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. Because of constantly engaging in devotional service in any condition of life, a devotee is free from all material bondage. Bhakti punati mannishtha shrabhakan api sambhavat. Even one born in a family of meat eaters is purified if he engages in devotional service. Bhagavatam 11.14.21. Srila Jiva Goswami cites this verse in logically supporting that anyone who chants about the pure life and activity of Prahlad Maharaj is freed from the reactions of material activities. Text 15 to 17. Prahlad Maharaj said, O Supreme Lord, because you are so merciful to the fallen souls, I ask you for only one benediction. I know that my father, at the time of his death, had already been purified by your glance upon him, but because of his ignorance of your beautiful power and supremacy, he was unnecessarily angry at you, falsely thinking that you were the killer of his brother. Thus, he directly blasphemed your lordship, the spiritual master of all living beings, and committed heavily sinful activities directed against me, your devotee. I wish that he be excused from these sinful activities. Purport. Although Hiranyakashipu was purified as soon as he came in contact with the Lord's lap and the Lord saw him, Prahlad Maharaj still wanted to hear from the Lord's own mouth that his father had been purified by the Lord's boundless mercy. Prahlad Maharaj offered this prayer to the Lord for the sake of his father. As a Vaishnava son, despite all the inconveniences imposed upon him by his father, he could not forget his father's affection. Text 18. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Prahlad, O most pure, O great saintly person, your father has been purified along with 21 forefathers in your family. Because you are born in this family, the entire dynasty has been purified. Purport. The word Trisaptati means 7 multiplied by 3. In one's family, one can count back 4 or 5 generations to one's great-grandfather or even one's great-grandfather's father. But since the Lord mentions 21 forefathers, this indicates that the benediction expands to other families also. Before the present family in which one has taken birth, one must have been born in other families. Thus, when a Vaishnava takes birth in a family, by the grace of the Lord, he purifies not only that family, but also the families of his previous births. Text 19.
Go back to the
Whenever and wherever there are peaceful, equipoised devotees who are well behaved and decorated with all good qualities, that place and the dynasties there, even if condemned, are purified. Purport. Wherever exalted devotees stay, not only they and their dynasties, but the entire country is purified. Text 20. My dear Prahlad, king of the Deities, because of being attached to devotional service to me, my devotee does not distinguish between lower and higher living entities. In all respects, he is never jealous of anyone. Text 21. Those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee, and others should follow in your footsteps. Purport. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes a verse from the Skanda Purana. Ritetu tatvikan devan naradadims tathavacha praharatad uttama komu Vishnu bhaktau jagattraye. There are many devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they have been enumerated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.20 as follows. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Bharirvaya Satirvayam. Of the 12 authorized devotees, Lord Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kapila, Manu and so on, Prahlad Maharaj is understood to be the best example. Text 22. My dear child, your father has already been purified just by the touch of my body at the time of his death. Nonetheless, the duty of a son is to perform the Shraddha ritualistic ceremony after his father's death, so that his father may be promoted to a planetary system where he may become a good citizen and devotee. Purport. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that although Hiranyakashipu was already purified, he had to take birth on a higher planetary system to become a devotee again. Prahlad Maharaj was advised to perform the ritualistic ceremony as a matter of etiquette, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead under no circumstances wants to stop the regulative principles. Madhu Muni also instructs, Madhu Kaitavo Bhaktya Bhava Urau Bhagavaton Ritau Tameva Pramadaptau Bhaktya Chaityo Harim Vijau. When the demons Madhu and Kaitav were killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their kinsmen also observed the ritualistic ceremonies so that these demons could return home back to Godhead. Text 23. After performing the ritualistic ceremonies, take charge of your father's kingdom. Sit upon the throne and activities. Please keep your mind fixed upon me. Without transgressing the injunctions of the Vedas as a matter of formality, you may perform your particular duties. Purport. When one becomes a devotee, he no longer has any duty to the Vedic regulated principles. One has many duties to perform, but if one becomes fully devoted to the Lord, he no longer has any such obligations as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.41. Devarshi bhutaptirinam pitrinam nakinkaro nayam nanecha rajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parijatya kartam. One who has fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord is no longer a debtor to his forefathers, the great sages, human society, the common man, or any living entity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead nonetheless advised Prahlad to follow the regulative principles, for since he was going to be the king, others would follow his example. Thus, Lord Nrsimhadev advised Prahlad Maharaj to engage in his political duties so that people would become the Lord's devotees. Yadadacharate shrestha sattadevetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Bhagavad Gita 3.21. One should not be attached to any materialistic activities, but a devotee may perform such activities as an example to show the common man that one should not deviate from the Vedic injunctions. Text 24. Srila Muni continues, thus, as the Supreme Personality of God had ordered, Prahlad Maharaj performed the ritualistic ceremonies of his father. O King Yudhishthir, he was then enthroned in the kingdom of Hiranyakashipu as directed by the Brahmanas. Purport. It is essential that society be divided into 4 groups of men, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Here we see that although Prahlad was perfect in every respect, he nonetheless followed the instructions of the Brahmanas who performed the Vedic rituals. Therefore, in society, there must be a very intelligent class of leaders who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge so that they can guide the entire populace to follow the Vedic principles and thus gradually become most perfect and eligible to return home back to Godhead. Text 25. Lord Brahma, surrounded by the other demigods, was bright-faced because the Lord was pleased. Thus, he offered prayers to the Lord with transcendental words. Text 26. Translation. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Lord of all lords, proprietor of the entire universe, O benedictor of all living entities, O original person, Adi Purusha, because of our good fortune, we have now killed this evil demon who was giving trouble to the entire universe. Purport. The word Purvaja is described in Bhagavad Gita 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matya sarvam pravartate. All the demigods, including Lord Brahma, are manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the original person, the cause of all causes, is Govinda, the Adi Purusha. Text 27. This demon, Hiranyakashipu, received from me the benediction that he would not be killed by any living being within my creation. With this assurance and with the strength derived from austerities and mystic power, he became excessively proud and transgressed all the Vedic injunctions. Text 28. The great fortune, Hiranyakashipu's son Prahlad Maharaj, has now been released from death. For although he is a child, he is an exalted devotee. Now he is fully under the protection of your lotus feet. Text 29. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the Supreme Soul. If one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death. Purport. Everyone is sure to die, for no one is excused from the hands of death. It is but a feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mrityu Sarva Harashchaham. When one becomes a devotee, however, he is not destined to die according to a limited duration of life. Everyone has a limited duration of life, but a devotee's lifetime can be extended by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, who is able to nullify the results of one's karma. Karmani nirdhati kimtu cha bhakti bhajam. This is the statement of Brahma Samhita 5.54. A devotee is not under the laws of karma. Therefore, even a devotee's scheduled death can be avoided by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. God protects the devotee even from the extreme danger of death. Text 30. The Personality of Godhead replied, My dear Lord Brahma, O great Lord, born from the lotus flower, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, so it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, who are by nature ferocious and jealous. I warn you not to give such benedictions to any demon again. Text 31. Narad Muni continued, O King Yudhishthir, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is not visible to an ordinary human being, spoke in this way, instructing Lord Brahma. Then, being worshipped by Brahma, the Lord disappeared from that place. Text 32. Prahlad Maharaj then worshipped and offered prayers to all the demigods such as Brahma, Shiva and the Prajapatis, who are all parts of the Lord. Text 33. Thereafter, along with Shukracharya and other great saints, Lord Brahma, whose seat is on the lotus flower, made Prahlad the king of all the demons and giants in the universe. Purport. By the grace of Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj became a greater king than his father Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad's inauguration was performed by Lord Brahma in the presence of other saintly persons and demigods. Text 34. O King Yudhishthir, after all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma were properly worshipped by Prahlad Maharaj, they offered Prahlad their utmost benedictions and then returned to their respective abodes. Text 35. Thus, the two associates of Lord Vishnu, who had become Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the sons of Diti, were both killed. By illusion, they had thought that the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, was their enemy. Forward. The discourse concerning Lord Nrsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj began when Maharaj Yudhishthir asked Narad how Shishupal had merged into the body of Krishna. Shishupal and Dantavakra were the same Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Here, Narad Muni is relating how in three different births the associates of Lord Vishnu were killed by the Lord Vishnu himself. First, they were the demons Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Text 36. Being cursed by the Brahmanas, the same two associates took birth again as Kumbhakarna and ten-headed Ravana. These two Rakshasas were killed by Lord Ramachandra's extraordinary power. Text 37. Pierced by the arrows of Lord Ramachandra, both Kumbhakarna and Ravana lay on the ground and left their bodies, fully absorbed in thought of the Lord, just as they had in their previous births as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Text 38. They both took birth again in human society as Shishupala and Dantavakra and continued in the same enmity toward the Lord. It is they who merged into the body of the Lord in your presence. Purport. Vairānubandhena. Acting like the Lord's enemy is also beneficial for the living entity. Kama, Dveshat, Bhayat, Snehat. Whether in lusty desire, anger, fear or envy of the Lord, somehow or other, as recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami, Tasmat Kenapi Upayena. One should become attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ultimately achieve the goal of returning home, back to Godhead. What then is to be said of one who is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a servant, friend, father, mother or conjugal lover? Text 39. Not only Shishupal and Dantavakra, but also many other kings who acted as enemies of Krishna attained salvation at the time of death. Because the thought of the Lord, they received spiritual bodies and forms the same as his, just as worms captured by a black drone obtain the same type of body as the drone. Purport. The mystery of yogic meditation is explained here. Real yogis always meditate on the form of Vishnu within their hearts. Consequently, at the time of death, they give up their bodies while taking up the form of Vishnu and thus attain Vishnu Loka, Vaikuntha Loka, where they receive bodily features the same as those of the Lord. From the 6th canto, we have already learned that when the Vishnu Dutas came from Vaikuntha to deliver Rajamin, they looked exactly like Vishnu, with 4 hands and the same features as Vishnu. Therefore, we may conclude that if one practices thinking of Vishnu and is fully absorbed in thinking of him at the time of death, one returns home back to Godhead. Even enemies of Krishna, who thought of Krishna in fear, Bhaya, such as King Kansa, received bodies with identity similar to text 14. By devotional service, pure devotees who incessantly think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead receive bodies similar to his. This is known as Sarupya Mukti. All the Shishupala, Dantavakra and other kings thought of Krishna as an enemy. They also achieved the same result. Purpose. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, in connection with Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, it is explained that the devotee should externally execute his routine devotional service in a regular way, but should always inwardly think of the particular manner in which he is attracted to the service of the Lord. This constant thought of the Lord makes the devotee eligible to return home back to Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Tattva deham punarjanma nayati mamiti.
वो पे जाएंगे
After giving up his body,